I don't think you can play for trophies and medals. I think you need to play for the love of the sport. If you play for the idea that someday I'll make some money, then the joy in doing it either didn't exist or might disappear very quickly. You'll have to take some joy in doing everything in darkness, alone, and then once in a while, you'll come out in the light and kind of do something spectacular. A thing that almost hurts me to see good operators go to the other side. No startup is really ever sold. They were all bought. Anything which you have to do 1,000 times over, even if it only takes 10 minutes, well, that's 10,000 minutes. So we now enter this a superhuman territory where the very thing that you do couldn't even be done with humans. We kept ramping up revenue aggressively. We up.
Welcome everybody to the new episode of the Founders Gambit. Joining me today is Dennis. Dennis is a lifelong entrepreneur, 5 ventures, 4 acquisitions, 1 that didn't make it, and he's again now building his number 6. He's been doing this for 25 years, no sabbaticals, and while raising a family in parallel. Dennis, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, man. Let's start simple. What is your current company doing, and how did you start about it?
2 questions. We can talk about how this particular venture got started, or how ventures in general, certainly from my end, get started. And then there's what the hell are you working on? So now we kind of brought the team back together and we're working on this automation platform that can log into your piece of software, take a screenshot of all your features, the table, the admin, the preferences, the settings, the what have you, then log into your knowledge base, read all the articles, extract all the images, then do a diff between reality, aka what does it look like in the application, what does it look like in your documentation, and if there is a change, expose that to you in some audit workflow, run that every Sunday night and say, hey, I took another 1,500 fresh screenshots of your application. I looked at all your articles. 900 didn't change, as in that login screen haven't changed for years, and good on you. These other things, like the nav and what have you, they changed. Go have a look. You like it? Give me a thumbs up. I write the whole thing back into your intercom or Zendesk or whatever knowledge base of choice that you have, and we're happy. Come next Sunday, we do the whole thing again. Now, why is this of value? Well, 2 parts to it. That's the part where you just inherently understand why there is no version of this universe where a piece of software exists without some help documentation. As in, I also want to live in some sort of utopia where every piece of software is so easy to use that I don't need any help. We might get there one day. Today is not that day. So you have to put some documentation in place, because if you don't, you're just going to get some unstructured, free-form, random emails coming into your ticket system trying to answer that. And the best way to protect against that, of course, is, hey, if you could help yourself through these set of articles, I would be better off, and you would be better off. Now, when those articles are not up to date, you pay for it. As in, you pay for it in disappointment, confusion, and obviously nobody's going to churn because of a bad article. They're going to churn because of a bucket of disappointment. But that bucket, don't add to it. Just make sure when they look at an article about how to add a filter to a table, or add 2-factor authentication to your app, or add a new user with these particular roles, that is just up to date. As in, why should you be penalized for the max velocity you have on engineering where the application keeps moving forward by showing a picture of the past to the world? So that's the one part. There's just real value in that. Then there's the other part where almost everybody understands that there is a value in keeping documentation up to par. So they already assigned somebody. So the job we do is not a new job. That's a job that already exists. It's just that Tim or Tina is doing it manually. Command Shift 4.
Yeah. And then make some mistake. Yeah.
Draw a few circles, log into Zendesk, drag it over, and it's not hard. But anything which you have to do 1,000 times over, even if it only takes 10 minutes, well, that's 10,000 minutes. And that's a 2-month endeavor. You can't even do it in a week. So we now enter this, that sounds very dramatic, but there's plenty of software that will enter kind of a superhuman territory for where the very thing that you do couldn't even be done with humans. As in, Either it's just too time-consuming, too expensive, impossible for humans to do. We're certainly in that territory where there is no version where you ask Tim, hey, could you this weekend, because we've done some updates on the app across, just do 1,000 new screenshots? Doesn't happen. Just doesn't happen. So
Impossible.
yeah, that's us. That's what we've been working on. And if you want the elevator pitch, down the lift, when I go out for lunch today, it'll just be Dennis does some really nice PNGs of software. That's the short.
That's it. Yeah, that's super cool. More numbers than I can count, more times than I can count, I experienced this problem going to really popular big companies, like whatever it is, like trying to search how to change a password or something, and then it's all old screenshots, and I'm like, what now? Like how?
And especially as founders, right? So folks like you and me, if this is now, we somehow live a little bit in the future. We certainly talk about what our product might look like in 4 months, not even today. And it comes so natural that feels like that's where we should all live. Well, we're not entirely there with those 3 new features that you've been talking about, Dennis, but I live out here. Now, of course, then my documentation lives 4 months in the past at a minimum. That means that delta between the song I sing and what people see is rather dramatic. And suddenly as a founder, when I looked at that, it just hurt me. Like, we lean in, work day and night to push all these new sexy features, and then I
You
take
get
pictures.
penalized for it.
Like, not cool, man. So yes, that's what we're working on. Still early days, but have just crossed into that territory for where we have real enterprise clients giving us real money that we can put in our pocket. So the whole thing might just be a business.
Amazing.
Or of course, we speak next year and the whole thing went tits up and we'll do another episode.
We'll have to repeat and check what happened. Yeah. So there is something really interesting about your story. So most of people, like a lot of people, I would say, that at least I know, they start a business, especially like in the app, like SaaS and all this. Like they start a business with an idea of selling it sometimes. They build it up, they sell it, and then they take a year off and kind of chill and see, what's next? But for you, no. Like you went 6 ventures back to back, like no stopping. How? Like 2 questions: how and why?
There's many things which you and me can read on Hacker News or Reddit or elsewhere about how you're supposed to execute the entrepreneurial journey. I'm not so sure I'm a believer in all of that commentary. Certainly, I'll give you the one pet peeve which I have, which is not even what you asked. Well, I'll put it out there anyway, which is that you somehow assemble a firm of such a quality that you get to the other side, some form of exit. We can talk about the different ways that you can get to that other side. Now, once there, you're supposed to become an investor of some sort, right? I said, yeah, I did a venture. I was once an operator, took a lot of energy. Now I either angel invest on my own, I sit in a small fund, I raise some extra funds, we're gonna invest along my own money, and so on and so forth. But I thought you were one of us. Like, we used to be on the same team, and now you want to sit on the other side of the table. And just because we happen to live in the same little world doesn't mean that we're doing the same things. And it's just a thing that almost hurts me to see good operators go to the other side. Now, that out of the way, because I think that is a disappointment. I was just about to say disgrace. That's a little too aggressive. But certainly a disappointment to me that they would kind of abandon the very thing that we cared about. Now, to answer your question, oh, here's another side note. You'll never get your answer. I'll pick up a word of what you said, which is that somebody will start something in hopes of getting to some form of exit. Mm-hmm. You had other words, but that's what you alluded to. Now, I'm actually not so sure that anybody with those thoughts will get there or have increased their probability of getting there. I don't think you can play for trophies and medals. I think you need to play for the love of the sport. And that means if you play for the idea that someday I'll make some money, well, then the joy in doing it either didn't exist or might disappear very quickly. And the whole thing is so hard that if you don't take joy in being at the gym, if you're a pro sports person, you're never going to be good at any sport. You'll have to take some joy in doing everything in darkness, alone, for the most part. And then once in a while, you'll come out in the light and kind of do something spectacular. But for the most part, you alone in the dark, doing things that are hard. But the joy in doing those things that are hard is why you do it to begin with. And then you stumble into trophies and medals because you really just play on Sunday for the funsies. Not because, well, yes, I got to pay rent. One day, perhaps I can get the bigger apartment or house or car, a boat, whatever your fantasy might be. Nah, just play it for the love of the sport. Now, I think, or at least that's the lie I tell myself, and I'm going to die with that in hand, that I just do it for the love of the sport, which is that I really just want a nice laptop, a Red Bull on my desk, some hours to spend, and just hack around. Make some good product, make some happy customers. If you do that on repeat for long enough, here's another side note. Best way to win is to not die. We can go into detail.
This is good. Yeah, we'll dive into this. Yeah.
But I just want to hang around here with my laptop. Now, if you do that, optionality arrives. All sorts of opportunities. New partners, new customers, new investors, M&A in all of its kind of incarnations and so on and so forth. And some of them might just be so good that you say, that's not a bad fit. I didn't seek it out. It sought me out. Another side note, which is very much true. It seems like some sort of saying that it's kind of true, but it's, I think, the truest of things. No startup is really ever sold. I said, I actually don't have a memory of a friend of mine who successfully, or myself, successfully sold a venture. They were all bought, as in somebody sought us out for what we had, and somehow we made enough of a dent in the universe for somebody to take note,
get you,
and they ring us up. And if that does not happen, there is no kind of investment banker that can assemble a two-pager and go shop that around. And yes, perhaps you can get a few monies and get a job somewhere else, but not in the kind of traditional exit sense. Did you make it to the other side? A lifeboat came along, made sure you didn't completely drown on the day. But then again, if you ask me, I think I much rather just drown and say, hey, I tried to the bitter end. How did it end? Citibank came to my front door knocking, saying, Dennis, we need the keys. Okay, I guess today is the last day then. And that's the way it's kind of supposed to be. So, two questions. How did I do it back to back? Answer, for the love of the sport. For me, it was never a penalty. There's no moment for where this was so hard or so burdensome or so not me that I absolutely need a pause. And we can reuse my
this
analogy.
ties back, right? This ties back to the part that you need to at least love at some level what you're doing, because it's hard enough.
But then there's another story, right? So, I don't know. Enzo wins the World Cup with Argentina. As he did, and that must have been brutal. Like, as a footballer, like, since you're, 4, 5, 6 years old, every day, day in, day out, playing a lottery. You're probably not going to make it. But then one day, you're standing there, you won the World Cup, and good on you. Like, amazing. His first thought was never one, well, I should probably take a sabbatical. No, he was at the very top of his career. Like, now is the time to go out and really enjoy. Trophies in my backpack and out kind of dazzling people. Why is it that our particular sport doesn't allow for that? As in, you just got to an exit. It's not trophies. I put a few monies in my pocket. Let's go out and dazzle. So it's never one for where, now I must absolutely go exhale for 6 months. Nah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's kind of the why, how. Now, I see how you can be, and I don't want to devalue that. I can certainly see how you can be so physically and mentally exhausted that you simply don't have the capacity to kind of go about this particular trip one more time. That's fair. But if anything, you should have picked up a few cues along the way to why was it that I did things that are so exhaustive that I don't want to do some of them again. Because we have other stories where that is true, right? Some particular trip, run, exercise that was so hard that while doing it, you promise yourself you'll never do it again. But right after, it's like, hey, I actually think I could do better next time. Let's start training again. So there you have it. That's all the answer I can give.
Yeah, so you survive and then pull out something out of that and then be better for the next one, right?
And we can add another kind of note to that, which is that in almost all careers, whether you are a pro footballer or in any one of the kind of industry verticals that you and I get exposed to, if you do it for long enough, you get better tomorrow compared to who you were yesterday, which seems natural. Now, why is it that we as entrepreneurs shouldn't look at our particular career as a calling, just like if you're an architect or pick any number of other things for where at no point did that architect who just finished some building, I just saw an interview with the folks who worked on the new JP Morgan building, which they worked on for, I think, 6-7 years or something like that, that particular team. So that's a whole venture, working on one building. But at no point in that interview, when I looked at it, did it come to me, yeah, he should certainly kind of stop either being an architect in full, like what, or take a full kind of year-long sabbatical. And that was not part of it. Like, he took that kind of accolade of finally seeing the building kind of coming up and being kind of introduced to it and doing the walk around as in, yeah, we should do more of that, right? It was spectacular. Hard, yes, but now we're here. So somehow it got injected into our particular vertical. I don't think that's neither true nor should be the assumption.
This is amazing. Like, this is honestly like first time me hearing this analogy, but it just makes sense. And I would agree with you 100%. 100%.
I think it's even harder to make the counter argument for why it should not be like that.
Yes.
You know, I understand the question, and you certainly not the first one who asked it, and I certainly ask it to myself because I've grown up in the exact same environment as you. But as soon as you start to think about it, it's hard to kind of tell a story that becomes believable for why you should take 2 years off or never do it again.
Yeah, it's just not popular, right? I think these people who do make some of these exits and then do take some time off, like that happens more often than not, right? And then you hear these stories, and then if you do something like that's the only thing you know. Oh, this guy took it, so let me do the same, right? I think that's how it goes. There is no logic behind it. I'm 100% with you on that. Yeah, cool. You mentioned something really cool there along the lines that like live to fight another day, right? Just don't die. What do you mean by that?
The thing we do is surely so hard that we should assume and expect that we'll never succeed in the traditional sense. We are running an experiment, and I think we should differ between setting up a small business and starting a venture or a startup, if that is the kind of moniker we want to use here. So a startup to me is an experiment of trying to take something that didn't exist yesterday and bring it to life and then turn that into a business. The likelihood of that succeeding should be small, because if it wasn't, anybody would be doing it. And the very thing that you believe should exist would already have existed, because there would be no risk in trying it. Now, given that I just assume or expect or the likelihood of me not getting to the other side would be very high, then just by the fact that you choose not to die today will get you no, ever closer to the goal, just inching away from where, there's all sorts of paths that will suggest that the very thing that you are building shouldn't even exist to begin with. And the whole thing is a dead end, and that will many times be the case. We can talk about why I certainly, and I think anybody else should, overinvest in the beginning, that you should have so much belief in the very pain that you're trying to remove, that the path you're on is always true. Now, whether it's the right time, you have the right skills, enough monies, enough luck, enough anything to kind of get to the end, fair enough, might not have enough of any of them, but at least you know you're on the right path. So I aggressively overinvest in the beginning. Before we get started, there's all sorts of ways that you can kind of get started. Some will kind of do, apply other tactics. I like the idea of like months on end working on the kind of definition of the pain, so much so that that becomes a religion, which I believe in. Not that I'm the savior to come out and kind of solve it, but I will certainly know that I'm on the right path. Now, if I can just then not die by whatever means, but also if that is kind of my belief, that also disallows me to do any pivots. As in, there is no, if you pivot, then you're on a new path. But that particular path, I might not know or might not have researched as aggressively.
You start at zero, right?
That's a new venture, that's a new experiment. Then probably even a new team. So that's just not an option. The only option is to see for how long can we stay alive. And if we keep paddling, we might just get to the island. Might not, probably not. I can see us die very quickly, but if we just keep paddling here. So that is my just don't die. And I've certainly seen this from afar, and it's very hard when you're in it, that very good people with very good ideas, solid talent, product just starting to kind of stick a little bit, somehow either surrendering on their own or not have the stamina or the grit, just make it another week, another month, another quarter, another year. And many times when you look at, what were the solutions for this particular problem at that particular moment? And then you go back and you have a look, and there was perhaps 4 or 5 contenders, or even 90 contenders at some point, because we're all kind of just jumping into it, and 4 or 5 survived. Were they the 4 or 5 best ones? Not always. They were just the ones who were unwilling to die, and they somehow got to the other side. And good on them.
This is perfect. I want to ask you one thing. Like, how do you know that you're dead? When to stop? Because I had like last 2 guests, or it doesn't matter. One of them built they are both solo founders, so they do everything alone. And one of them built 15 apps. None of them worked, like quick ones. Like he pushes something out, doesn't work, he jumps. And then 16th app works, and now he's making money and whatever. It's successful. Yeah. And then another guy had 2 years of literally nothing, barely surviving, doing freelancing on the side just to support himself, and still keeping at it at one single thing. And then boom, something happened, like you said, and now he's flourishing. How do you know when to actually hey, I'm dead, now I should actually do something?
You need to have some conviction to the initial research which you did on the particular problem that you're working on. So if at some point you and me have looked at transportation and have come to conclude that it seems somewhat inevitable that these cars will be driving themselves. Our thesis will be more elaborate than that, but once we come to believe that that is inevitable, unless new information comes to the front, they'll still be true a decade later. even though we've been working at it at some kind of silly ass factory in the middle of nowhere to get whatever Toyota to go from A to B, still kind of hitting everything. But
Yes.
it's still true though. So we should only surrender because we somehow can't assemble, what's needed to keep this going. But if we still believe that the pain is there, why are we then surrendering? Sure, we can say we surrender because I simply do not have enough energy to kind of continue. Fair enough. Plenty of sports people, if we go back to that analogy, will also surrender along the way and say, hey, there can only be one who's going to win the world championship. I didn't have it in me. I said, it takes so much sacrifice to kind of get to it. I didn't have it in me. Or I might not have the talent, or I might not have many things. That's okay. But if you and me still believe in that, Gabriel and Dennis are still working on that self-driving car out in that garage in Texas, and they've been at it for 10 years. At no point, if I somehow assemble all the kind of people and capital and kind of stamina, I would still be at it on the 11th year. And certainly some of these folks, they stuck to it. Some of them didn't. So for me, only if something kind of comes to the front that suggests that the very problem we're trying to solve changed so dramatically that it's no longer a problem. Fair enough. We're now kind of fighting a lost battle, and we should kind of just call it the day. I don't think we should call it the day because we somehow couldn't solve it yet. Hey, just keep leaning in, man.
This is amazing. And like you told me one of your ventures kind of didn't work out, right? What happened there? Do you have anything do you know why it failed? And what was the difference between the one that failed and 4 that you managed to exit?
So the one that failed, if anything, were true to the problem, but perhaps had an element that is now kind of becoming true, but 20 years later, not on the day. So it was the one, it was still super data driven. So we figured out very early on that the ease with which people wanted to order food would eventually move online. Seems like, that's just so obvious that might not happen today or tomorrow, but we blink and then it will happen. So that was certainly kind of the core part of what we worked on. You can call it Seamless or Grubhub or Just Eat or any one of the kind of vendors out there. Now, we had another twist to that, which was that we believed that people actually weren't having much brand loyalty as in the real world. So you might have some brand loyalty when you want to go get a burger today. You walk down your high street and you find a chain which you've been to before. Whatever, In-N-Out Burger, Burger King, whatever might be your favorite kind of burger place. So there's certainly some brand loyalty. When we order online, there might actually be other parameters we believe that will come into play, as in probably more on kind of trust in ordering system, ease with which I can order, time to delivery, and less about whether it's one or the other Thai place. It's really just that I wanted Thai or Mexican or Chinese or whatever the category might be, or I need a pizza or I need a burger or I need certain things, but there was actually no brand attached to it. It's just, hey, Gabriel, should we get a couple of pizzas? Some might have a little bit of affinity to a particular brand, but it certainly seemed like when we looked at it, not much. That turned out to also be true. So we did what the Jet guy over here, he also did diapers.com. He's building something called Wonder as we speak. and built that up where we then took in restaurants who will then produce our menu, what you would think of in today's terms as cloud kitchens, where the kitchen doesn't matter. And we kind of nailed it on revenue. But the quality of the output, which we thought was actually less important than some of the other parameters, yeah, it is less important. As in, it doesn't have to be the best Michelin star Thai meal you ever gotten. All I need is, we're watching a movie tonight, me and my girlfriend, and we need a couple of Diet Cokes, we need some Thai food, and it just needs to be not bad. We didn't cross into the inflection point of this is not bad, because as soon as we outsourced this, it went just below that bar. And now, of course, in hindsight, I could see the delta wasn't big, but once you're just on the other side, then it starts to matter. Oh, it wasn't heated correctly, felt a little kind of subpar, felt just a little off. Now all of a sudden I care, but before that I wouldn't have cared. I just needed pepperoni. And then we racked up revenue quickly, but we had all sorts of kind of return policies. For every kind of $20 I did in revenue, it would cost me $22 to kind of get that. And in many kind of instances, kind of scale will solve that for you. It didn't solve it for us. So we kept ramping up revenue aggressively because we were just, it was just the right time, just as people were kind of moving online. So the whole thing just worked well, but we died on that. What we should have done in hindsight is to kind of, there will still be shit deliveries in this network. We need a way to move the responsibility away from us to somebody else. So this is what happens in these current networks, right? Which is that on your whatever app you use in your region, you pick a Thai place. If it doesn't work, you know what? You might just kind of take a mental note. You just pick the next one. But you actually rarely blame, unless of course all of the folks in the networks are bad. Then the network itself is bad. But right, you get one bad Thai place. You think, the Thai place is shit.
It's not an app.
Another place, then the network with the app will survive. But we took on that responsibility because we rebranded things. That meant we couldn't export the blame to somebody else. We took the blame every time. So that was the core issue. If I were to kind of go back and play the exact same game one more time, which I do think about some days, that was the core issue. I couldn't outsource the blame.
What's the problem that you removed the brands? Because now I just want a pizza, and then if I don't know where it came from, you're wrong. Not whatever, Domino's or whatever.
Exactly. And if you go on again your delivery app today, or even if I asked you from memory, I'm actually not even sure. Let's say you ordered from 10 places over the last year, different places. I'm quite confident that you might not be able to kind of read back the brands of the 10 places you ordered from. But you might actually be able to remember, we did get, we got pizza that night, we got Chinese that night, we ordered some burgers, like that you might remember, because those were kind of really the experience. Me, my pals, some burgers, and that kind of new Top Gun movie that came out. Like, that was the memory of the night. So the sentiment of what we wanted to kind of solve for wasn't wrong, but there was kind of a glitch in how it was implemented. That's being very polite to myself. We fucked up. But there was a glitch in the matrix for where somehow we didn't see clearly enough, quickly enough, that there will be blame in this particular system. And somehow it can't end on us. How do we outsource that blame? That became impossible with the kind of rebranding exercise we did. So we redid the packaging and all sorts of things because we wanted the whole thing to be a seamless, no pun intended, seamless experience, but died on it in the end.
This is a cool story. And you were ahead of curve, so it would be like a perfect business, literally. That would be like huge.
But then again, any kind of dream of what you did in the past and how you play it differently with the knowledge you have today is always going to be a good game. Like, hey, if I could go back and play any game I played in the past, now knowing that this is how the whole thing kind of played out, sure. So,
It wouldn't be
no
fun.
regret. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. You told me something really interesting on our intro call. You said that you see your career as a 50-year fund, 8, maybe 10 ventures over a whole lifetime. How does that mindset help you do what you do?
I'll add a little color to it for those who might not immediately see why that should make sense. So if you take any VC firm, right, as you know, and as most of your listeners will know, there'll be some sort of funnel, right? There'll be a lot of activity at the top. Take 1,000 people who are in market for funding. Out of that 1,000 people, some of them will get introduced into their funnel. They'll get exposed to some kind of set of criteria, and they'll kind of funnel down to, oh yes, then you have a few meetings with an associate, then you might kind of do some activities, then you might meet up with a partner, then you do some activities, you might get exposed to some sort of partner meeting, then you do some activities, and you might even get a term sheet at the end. But it's certainly an aggressive funnel, right? Doesn't look like this, it looks more like this. And that means they invest, pick some random fund, they have $150 million, they invest in, a dozen and a half some ventures every year, over 3 or 4 years, exhaust the fund to some degree, do all the follow-ons, and there's a whole kind of plan baked into that. But it's certainly a plan for where they funnel through what they think are the poorer ones to get to the better ones. And even in this very dramatic funnel, where they bring money to the party, by the way, to increase the probability of success, almost all of them die. Damn. If that is the case, then it seems almost insane if you and me believe, nah, you know what? My funnel looks like this. It's just a pipe. One at the top, one at the bottom. I'm a fucking rock star. Now, if I'm that good, you know what? Perhaps I should run a fund. Because if I can do a pipe and not a funnel, just go pick some winners, Dennis. Click, 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 click. I got 4 pipes. They're all winners. So that seems not just naive, but as I said, almost insane to believe. So your assumption should be that, hey, the very thing that they do is the very world I live in. They also do it for a living. And we can have all sorts of laughs about how they are, not clever or just kind of Columbia MBAs or whatever. Hey, they're smart people. They've done this for years, decades even, and even they can't get it right because it's hard. Now, so with that in mind, we should probably just add a little bit of humility to what we do. So we can't do 15 and create a portfolio in parallel as they can for where 2, 3, 4 might make it to the other side. Now, we can do them in serial though. So we run a different fund. So any VC fund might kind of play out in that kind of initial kind of moment over 3 or 4 years. Us, well, we run, as I kind of think about it, certainly to myself, a 50-year fund. Because we think of entrepreneurship as a lifelong career. And we can probably spend, 4, 5, 6, 7 years on each venture. And out of that comes a set of plays. We're not going to win all of them. Hell, we might not even win most of them. But somehow we have arranged it so we can do it back to back over a lifetime. And that's the 50-year fund. Now, how does that help? It certainly helps me in seeing that, if you lose one, that is neither a failure nor something I should be embarrassed about. That is just the natural order of things. That is not a moment where I completely surrender, go into hiding, it didn't kind of work out. But everybody else's kind of funnel doesn't work out. If anything, if you and me can do 4 and only 1 worked out, we're fucking killing it. Like, that is an astonishing kind of tight funnel that we somehow put in place. So yes, I do think of it as a 50-year funnel, and it should give people some calm to run their current experiment and accept with pride that it didn't work out as we had hoped for. We still ran the experiment. Now, just as an interesting little side note, of all the things that are wrong with America, especially today, it is the one thing that suddenly works very well. So I think both you and me are making an assumption on you and me not having grown up too far from each other, certainly on the other side of the water.
Yeah.
In an environment where there's some stigma still attached to what other people think of as failure. As in, yeah, Gabriel, didn't you start that thing 5 years ago and it didn't work out? And somehow they say it not to be cruel, but certainly with some sort of tone of that was not good, or that should be a little embarrassed, or I'm happy I still have my job at McKinsey or IBM and not kind of sailing in your boat, which I think is just the wrong sentiment, and certainly not what I'm willing to adopt myself. Now, on this side of the water, that tends to be a lot more credit to having tried, whether you succeeded or not, as in
100%.
baked into the culture, for where back home you're almost kind of packaging your CV in a way where it doesn't become kind of obvious that I did that 2-year thing that didn't work out. Over here, if anything, oh, that's the highlight of the CV. Yeah, I did quit my job at so-and-so. I didn't work at JP Morgan for those 2 years. I went out to do this fintech thing. It didn't pan out, but damn, I did it. And for most people, that kind of injects that moment of, yes, I was a rock star for 2 years. So, yes, go back to the beginning of your question. The 50-year fund kind of gives me calm in knowing that not every one of these need to succeed. Apply yourself. Try to make it succeed. Do the best you can. But it's still a 50-year fund. We've got multiple plays in us.
Yeah. And you need just one to work out. Like you don't need more.
Yeah.
Like if only one works. And again, like for each and every one, you're presumably better than the last one. You learn something.
Exactly. And what's cool about our particular sport is that, if anything, there's no kind of expiration. It's not like, hey, yeah, any 35-year-old footballer is not as good as the 23-year-old version of himself or herself. Now, for us, we're going to be as good at, 23, 34, 42.
If not even better. Yeah. That's a good analogy.
No attached to that.
Yeah, I honestly never looked at it that way. Like literally any, like if you look at sports, like they are decaying while you, like you're presumably after every venture, like learn something. You're smarter in a way, right? And you
Yep.
know, oh, I won't do this again. Fuck that. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I found something really fascinating that you said, like you're an engineer, right? You did game development. And then in most of your ventures, you have a co-founder who is a Columbia MBA. But he runs engineering and you run the commercial side, right? It's flipped. How did that happen?
It's a good question. And it's not like I, no pun intended, engineered it in that particular way. But there's certainly a particular gene which you must have if you do a new venture where you're the one who brings it to life as the founder, which is that you must be able to sell people, because you're selling people all the time. You're selling your co-founders to join the venture. You're selling new candidates to join the team. You're selling the employees to not quit. You're selling the market, the press, investors, your family. You're selling everybody all the time. If you don't have that in you, as in you don't enjoy kind of singing the song or telling the story or exposing the world to what you have, not as some chore, but as a believer, or is an interesting side note, you don't even need to be a good salesperson per se within the kind of traditional definition of a salesperson. You need to be a believer. The best salespeople are people who might not even be good salespeople, but they believe so much in what they have that other people get excited on their behalf, which is that, yes, that thing Dennis is working on, that sounds exciting. Yeah, because I'm excited about it, and my excitement will kind of transfer to you, whoever you are, some investor, some potential lead, customer, candidate, co-founder, and what have you. Now, that gene or skill I picked up early enough and kind of ran with it. And that meant often I would be the one where everything outside this door of these offices, yeah, I'll take care of. Anything inside these doors at these offices, my co-founder would kind of take care of. So yes, in that regard, I ended up in that particular position more often than not. There's all sorts of things which you can talk about in regards to that role. And if anything, it might just be, this is where I might be lying to myself. So everybody just add a footnote to, now he went full delusional. But hear me out. There certainly used to be a time for where the very kind of skill set of being able to program a computer was so hard, so difficult, that only the very few would be able to do it. And I certainly remember. So I did my first, half decade or more, mostly machine code. And then we upgraded to assembly just to make it a little faster, right? And then in the end, perhaps a little bit of C for logic, but mostly just straight assembly, just because compute was limited. You needed to kind of squeeze out the most of whatever number of clock cycles you have. And that just excluded almost everybody. As in, no rando from the street would come in and do any valuable work. Now, today, a good product manager, and pick your favorite, Claude Code, Codex, what have you, can do not just a prototype, probably not even just an MVP, but a near, quote, production level application. Wasn't really a programmer per se, but can get very far. Now, we can only assume that we're on some sort of curve where we're not yet at the end. So that PM will be able to get even further tomorrow. Now, if they're able to get further and further, then the very expertise that you and me might have assembled from kind of years, decades, hacking away, knowing the details, I still think there's some value in that. We can talk about that as well. But they'll certainly be able to get so far that now the barrier to entry is not whether you can team up with a hacker. No, that is probably whether you have enough of a sales gene or go-to-market skill, if you want to use a kind of startup word, to make sure this is exposed to the right people. And that is certainly a skill that I think a whole lot less has somehow been able to assemble today, because there's all sorts of things that comes attached to that, like let's pick something obvious. Most people, whenever in a sales setting, will be exposed to kind of emotions like shame, embarrassment, what have you, which I think are the wrong emotions at the wrong time, but they'll still experience that, as in, I don't have it in me. I can almost do a cold email, but even that, I feel it's a little icky, but I can certainly not do a cold call or a cold meeting, or at this networking event where I know there'll be 3 leads. I can't assemble the courage to go up and kind of sell people on the floor, whatever it might be. Sure, there's all sorts of fantasies of creating some sort of product with virality kind of baked into it, so I never have to do any of the kind of slimy things that comes attached to sales. Sure, we all kind of want that fantasy to kind of play out, but in the end, some of the selling, I think, will be a human effort between one or more humans. And I think that is a skill in short stock. And plenty of the hackers who won the last few decades might be missing that. And the PMs or the industry experts for where the code itself is now not a barrier might actually have some of that. And we might see some of the power dynamics kind of flip around. And I'm saying this as an engineer, as somebody who just sit around on my laptop every day, code away, not speak to people, and be happy. Like every 3 months, I still install my either Commodore 64 or Amiga 500 emulator and go kind of do a little bit of hacking on a computer that I miss, which I spent years on alone at home, right? So I see all sorts of joys in that, but I do think there's going to be a new group of people here where this particular skill might be in short stock, and some of those hackers who's been borderline arrogant, and I'm saying this as a club member, over the years, might see things flip. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and we're already seeing it, at least I'm seeing it a lot with developers who their whole identity was, hey, I'm an engineer. I know what I'm doing. This AI stuff is just, I don't know, here to pass away, which it won't, of course. And like you said, like AI is stupidest today. Like tomorrow, it won't be stupider, right? It just gets better, or at least that's the hypothesis. So a lot of these engineers are like, I don't want to use that. It's bad. It's a lot of bugs. Whatever it is, it's destroying. Okay, yeah, Anthropic just Claude killed itself. But these things happen, right? But it's a lot of these people are experiencing, and like I'm one of them. Like I'm a developer as well. And when it just came out, I was like, what do I do now? Do I feel threatened? And which I did a bit. Like I'm like, what the hell do I do now? Right? This will replace me in 2 years. Or do I embrace it and just become 10 times better than the person who doesn't? And we just embrace it, and the whole company, like one dev now kills. Like one developer with Claude can build your whole product. You don't need a team. Why have a team? Like it's useless. One good engineer, one good senior who knows what he's doing, just leave him. That's it.
It is going to be super interesting, right? Because I think we've had actually many decades where things surely did progress. But if I look at the editor of yesteryear, it didn't change much. As in, go look at an editor from 2015, 205, 1995. Yes, sure, VS Code today, or whatever your favorite editor might be, is much sexier, but it doesn't really look dramatically different to what you did 20 years ago. Yes, some of the languages have changed and all of that, and we have new kind of practices, but the whole job didn't change dramatically over the years. It will now. There's a whole kind of step function, and I find it very exciting. And I'm not sure you and me know exactly how it's going to play out. This is the optimist in me, because I'm super pro engineer. That's the kind of idea that the software engineer will kind of disappear. That's just silly. Or we'll only need a tenth. Nah, whenever you get access to something at a much cheaper cost, then you just start wanting more shit. That was always the case. It was not like, oh yes, now we have like 100x the energy that we had compared to some year in the past. Yeah, we found ways to use that energy. I think we'll find plenty of ways to use this kind of explosion really in kind of software writing capability, which will be some sort of pairing with software engineers, and AI, and whatever else goes into that magic bucket. But I don't see either the profession nor the need of having kind of engineers at hand to to direct this. I do think there'll be a lot of noise over the next number of years, surely. And we've seen that in some of the postings, right, where some of the junior folks are now finding it a little hard because most people really just want, hey, the junior engineer is cloud code. What I need is some senior engineers to make sure that my junior engineer doesn't fuck things up. So, hey, I'm going to hire for that. I think it will somehow fall into place and we'll figure out what it looks like. But access to more just means people will be asking for more. And I think there'll be some sort of alignment on that. But we'll see how it plays out.
You're 100% right. Like, we don't know what will happen, but I can align with you on that part that there will still be a need for engineer, but it will be a different role. They won't, like, my developers don't do, I would say, like 95% of the code is not written by them, right? They review it, they architecture it, they make sure it's scalable, that it's written well, they prompt it, right? Which is totally different. Even like 6 months ago, that wasn't the case because its AI was still not there yet. Like you had, like, it wasn't working that way. Now, totally different story. But then again, like, I don't think it will fizzle out. Like, we just doubled down on it. And I was like, okay, do we pivot or do we just keep doing what we're good at, just evolve it? And I'm like, I'm not pivoting. This was hard enough to grow to this stage. Like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, we just double down, put all the chips there. And I think there will still be a need for devs, good good engineers. And yeah, that's kind of our whole thing. Just double down and see where it goes.
And new roles will arrive within this, where perhaps the role was a little too rigid in the past. Yes, I need a particular type of back-end engineer with these particular type of skills, or a particular individual who's going to work this subset of our infrastructure, or I need this front-end hacker in this particular framework who's done these types of components in the past. Perhaps that will become a little bit more
loose,
diffused. But I do think that new things will arrive, which might not be, we might even be doing some of it now. We're not even thinking of it as a role or as a skill. But then before we know it, oh, yes, what I need in a UI UX person in the past, and this might just be a stupid example, is somebody who can really kind of dance around in Figma. And not just do a few sketches, but kind of make it so good we can almost kind of export it. Yeah, but perhaps in the future, what that individual will be doing is writing design MD files for Claude to consume in a different way. Hey, I still have a need, but I just see new roles will arrive in new ways. And if we spoke in 2 years, some of those roles or some of those postings on whatever kind of favorite job board we have will start to kind of be exposed, and we'll say, yeah, of course, that's what we need.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, something interesting about your career is that, like, I know a lot of business people, maybe not a lot, but I know some people see family as a thing that might get in a way of building things, especially like small kids, babies at home, you're not sleeping, you need to do, like, as a founder, I know myself, it's hard, right? You need to be there thinking about it 24/7. And then the kids. And you had kids early, right? And built everything while raising them. How do you see kids and family impacting your career? In a good way, in a bad way? How do they help you?
I'm a big fan. And it sounds like one of those things for where most would suggest you either wait or don't do it at the same time, or some version of that. I'm just a big fan. I'm saying that as somebody who stumbled into it. The whole thing worked out. Me and Vibeke were together for 31 years. Wow, met super young. Had the kids super young. Not compared to our parents' generation, but compared to our generation, where things will roll into their 30s and what have you. So we had them early. Now, I'll give you one example. We can go back to what we just talked about before, where it certainly worked in my favor. You're right, it is hard, but you solve that. And just as a side note for anybody listening, so I've done all my ventures, but this last one with kids. That's it. Got them in the first one, then did all kind of 5 until they were finished with university. And now I just started my 6th one, on my own. You're never on your own.
Yeah.
You'll learn that later. So you're still kind of attached. But conceptually now, there's not somebody kind of in the next room, somebody to pick up, or somebody to kind of have to kind of go do a chore with. So did all first 5 with kids around, from tiny to kind of college graduates. Now, I'll give you one item, and we can leave it at that as a good kind of closing note, which is that if what I said earlier, certainly as a founder, the one thing which you cannot escape is you needing to have some sales chain, because you'll be selling everybody all the time on everything. So there is no escaping that. There's no you sitting alone, sending out a couple of emails and getting success on that. So you have to somehow figure out, how do I, and if not you, well, then there's somebody else on your co-founding team for where their title will be CEO and founder, who now need to go out and sing the song, because there's no version where none of you will do it. Now, in that case, a cheat code I found is, if you end up with a couple of kids very early on, and you can't write this up in a blog post and have people believe it, you can only do it and then somehow trust me that what I say is true. That sounds like a dangerous bet, but do trust me in that regard, is that there'll be this aura of you already having won in life, which is that, and again, you can't explain it to people unless they somehow, go bake a couple of kids, see them arrive, and you now see, well, no matter what happens, like even the most dramatic negative outcome, I can go home, there'll be 3 girls who loves me. So that means you can walk into any sales meeting with the face of this guy, I think, somehow tells me, not in words, that he won in life. His confidence and his excitement and his willingness to walk away somehow have me lean in. And most people will pick up on that. And again, we can come back to one of the kind of sentences from prior. A salesperson is not necessarily that kind of idea of the slick salesperson that Hollywood created for you. A salesperson is somebody who can somehow figure out what particular needs do you have as a customer, if it's a customer that you're selling, and somehow have you believe the very thing which I've crafted can help kind of solve for that particular need. And it doesn't need to be, hair slicked back and all of the usual things. It just needs to be one for where his kind of aura and his excitement and a way to kind of really amplify that and dial it up to 11. Go bake a couple of kids. Yes, it'll be super hard. You'll sit some nights and say, hey, that fucking Danish dude said it would be easier, and I'm crying myself to sleep. Yeah. But then you'll be in some meeting in 2 weeks and you're not entirely sure, but somehow we did close our biggest account. And somehow something in that meeting, and I can't put my finger on it, because it was not like we gave any dramatic discount or anything, but somehow they got sucked into my belief of this being the right solution. So that'll be my one point. I think there's 1,000 other things, surely, but it's a sales gene amplifier, which is very easy. Of course, it's a lifelong commitment, but you can just go bake it right now, and then you have it. But
that's beautiful, because my mother said something. My mother says something similar about my brother and I. She says how she knows that she won in life. She looks at us. We are good people doing things that we love, having amazing. My fiance and his girlfriend around us, having amazing people around us, and she's just proud of that. And that's the best. She said that's the best part of her life. So I think that can connect to your point here, that whatever happens, you still have 3 people that love you no matter what happens, right?
Yeah.
Something fails, it's not going well, it's hard day, you come home and you're like, fine, here
It's,
yeah.
then there's a picture of, yeah, Dennis, I know that the production server pretty much exploded in our face, and that was not great, and we're still working on it. I've been working on it for 18 hours, and I have to kind of wake up early and work on it again, but you know what? It's not the end of the world. We'll fix it. We'll get there, right? So, again, it might all just be a story I tell myself to survive the struggles along the way, but I believe in it.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. I think this is perfect spot to end this on. It was a pleasure to meet you. This was amazing conversation, and we have to do it again sometimes for sure. Thank you very much for coming on. If you have any like your socials, links, anything, you can plug them right now, and we'll also link them below in the comments.
Cool. First, everybody should immediately, if they're writing a piece of software and have assembled a team and has some documentation in place, go to launchbrightly.com, check out how you can automate your screenshots. That's my job to say that. If you want to connect, I'm everywhere on the internets under Dennis Mortensen. Pick your channel, and I'm probably singing my song there, and we'll be happy to connect. And if you want to go bananas, I'm an inbox zero guy. So dennis@launchbrightly.com. Feel free to shoot me an email.
Amazing. Thank you very much again, and yeah, see you around, man.